just a weird follow-up with the smoothing ball. So one way you can sort of expedite this process and usually do a job of maintaining the shape of stuff is select basically all the border edges, like anything that you hard on the sort of like major seams of this. So I've gone through and pretty much with here. And then you can just go ahead and double this and make it a smaller little fraction, give it 3 segments. That does a pretty decent job holding the shape. And once you go ahead and smooth that, you'll see it does a decent job. Some of these areas are obviously a little bit wiggly, clean them up manually, but it's also added a buttload of n-gons in here, so like that's the thing. Ew. Wow. That's the thing that's just gonna like need to get cleaned up manually. But once you've done that, it allows you to pretty easily go in and just like add some extra loops to these areas so that you can go through and kind of hold those edges a little bit better, right? So I mean now that's not getting all squishy like that side is. Forgotten where I put an edge. All right, so like something like that should be decent. I'm just going to do this one side because it's easier. So then we get obviously a bunch of gross up here that we don't want. In that case, and actually what I probably should have done is deleted the top of this circle before doing this because it added a bunch of extra loops in. I don't now later. So with that deleted, we can go in and control delete that. And then go in, I might just throw an extra loop in here so that I'm able to grab these guys, merge to center, and let's try deleting these edges. Alright, so make sure that when you delete your edge loops, you are using a control delete. I'm just going to merge these little dudes to center, pick ones semi-arbitrarily and delete them. And that doesn't seem to be making a huge amount of faceting, but I think I just again kind of go through and like accent one of them casually. Now this is wrapping around because I have not done this on the other side of the object. So in this case, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of like cheat it a little bit and just kind of like pretendsies go around and like fill this manually, and just, you know, you would do that and finish it on the other side of the object if you were doing this for anything. So I'm just going to throw in also maybe another loop here, and then a little dude right there. Basically, I just want somewhere, again, clean where I can grab these 3 loops here. And I could have actually just made that a try. The extra edge loop was kind of overkill. And then just go through and do that again. Boop. Cool. Alright, so now we have like a decent little area here. Obvious faceting. I'm going to go through and, in this case, actually, what happened? I feel like that's going to be fine, and it seems like. So, do that, delete a loop. It does give me some weird pulling there, which is actually usually why I try to not brush. I find like on edges, how to describe them, but on edges like this, a lot of times I'll get some like weird stretching, or like it'll sort of like suck this edge like under the model in a very strange way, which is why oftentimes I'll try to avoid doing what I just did. So I might actually, like in this instance, is actually like does better to not have that loop in there. So this is like one of those weird things where, like, depending on the shape, obviously this is going to look different for everything that you're trying to do. That's why I had that loop in there. You're just going to have to go through and kind of like, you know, fudge stuff a little bit to see what gets you the best result. And in this case, so I mean, now we have another obvious, you know, crease here. What we could theoretically try to do is go in with something like multi-cut, add in an extra loop, and then drag, or add multi-cut, and then just drag that over buttons, like this. So basically, we're just sort of add multi-cut, just added a weird vert. So what we're able to do is then go in and actually delete these 2 loops, and still, it's going to be a little bit like off perfect sphere because we added that extra loop in there, but it's going to be a lot less overtly weird looking. I'm actually also kind of a little bit easier faceting in this. But yeah, so once we have that, again, we're able to go in, and this is probably going to get a little weird if I do that. It's like, yep, that's gross, bad, undo. Alright, what was it? Let's see what we have. Alright, so I think this actually might be an instance where I might just kind of want to go in and like redraw some of that geometry that I have here. So I'm going to try and see what happens. I make no promises if I delete this and add that up there. So that maintains weird shaped quads, but quads. We still have a little bit of pulling, which isn't ideal, but it's better than what we had previously, I guess, sort of. Except in this case, I do think that was actually, having this loop running down was actually something I did want, and it was, so I'm going to go back and multi-cut that in here. So we are making a little star by doing this, which isn't the end of the world, it's just good to be aware that you're doing that. Alright, so obviously that's created an end-gon there, so what we can do is just grab these little dudes here and merge them to the center, and that also allows us to delete that. Highly questionable for floating vertices. But yeah, so just kind of like keep going through, like keep stuff. We could actually, we don't need down here. They're not really serving any purpose. They're just making a hard edge where we don't need a hard edge, so we can get rid of that. Same thing can also be said for this. What would be better is to actually have another edge closer up here where those areas could get, or those loops could get sort of merged together, so we aren't pulling as far down. There still probably will be a little bit of pulling, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be quite as bad, I say, as we get some very, very straight. So that might be another instance where it might have made sense to just sort of like draw this stuff a little bit wider. I'm actually going to undo that because it looks terrible. Anyway, but yeah, so we could go through and like just merge these guys, just sort of, you know, if you know what the original loop is, great. Otherwise, just pick one, kind of delete it. And then you are left with something kind of like this, which, you know, obviously there's still some pulling here. It can be refined a little bit, but it's like pretty decent. Certainly better than it was originally. And then we can also go through somewhere like down here, pop in an extra loop, like the spaz that I am, grab those, merge them to center, and then control delete those loops, and that will pretty much fix that edge. Then obviously we have some funky looking faceting over here, so we can go through and merge these dudes to center. That is going to make some terrible pulling, so in that case that was probably right there, so maybe let's grab these and try them to center, maybe grab this little try in there, and sort of that, it's decent. Alright, I hate looking like a grid, it drives me crazy. Alright, so it seems like in doing some of this, I have deleted some of the edge loops required for this thing, which is annoying. So, let's go through and see what this belongs to. I am just going to randomly terminate this here. So for realsies, I would be, you know, fixing this side of the object, but, alright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and actually just start somewhat indiscriminately merging stuff together and seeing what that gets me. Now, if I do that, which looks halfway decent topology-wise, it's going to smooth really weird, where it's going to, like, kind of do what I did before, or say what I... Going to smooth, like how I mentioned before, which is going to, like, suck that under the model, which is obviously not ideal looking. So stuff like this, you often need to get a little bit creative with, like, how you do kind of crazy shape. So, I think I'm going to start with the worst end-gon, which is probably this one. And so we can see that these actually edges kind of look like they want to line up a little bit. So I'm going to grab these guys and try to do a merge center. That actually does a pretty nice job of just making a nice loop all the way around. And if we smooth that, it actually looks surprisingly decent. We still have end-gons here and here. So I do actually want to figure out some more elegant way of them. Yeah, again, I'll try another merge to center. And actually, why is this suddenly not behaving awfully? I'll take it. That's exciting. I mean, we're still getting some pulling from this ginormous tride, like, side here, but, you know, not the worst thing I've ever seen. Also not the best, but, you know. So I think what I'm going to do is actually try this. Fully expect to look very strange. And it kind of smoothed out the issue. I mean, they're still pulling there, but it's not as bad as it was. But it's not great. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the best thing ever. I think what I would probably want to do in this instance is actually just like pop in some extra loops in here. So adding this in is going to do a lot to crush down some of those like weirder weirder pulling going across the rest of the model. And if we merge those vertices to center, we have a nice little bank of quads here, and also something that is, stopping that pulling from extending a sphere. We do get a little bit of funkiness over here, and I think that's another instance where like going in with cut and sort of just adding a few edge loops so that we can basically separate out these loops. So once I redrew that, I'm basically able to go through and just delete all of this extra stuff. So we have two loops that hold with the overall circular shape a little bit better, that aren't going to make as aggressive pulling. So a lot of this is just sort of like, edge loop maintenance basically, but a lot of it's also just sort of finding creative ways to go back in and add loops and redraw stuff so it doesn't like crush the sphere down too aggressively. But yes, so let's finish off these other random loops over here. And that, strictly speaking, that is a quad, so it's kind of fine. It doesn't seem to make any totally catastrophic pulling, so that's kind of fine. Now down here, I've done some truly god-awful things to this, apparently, which, hey, it does look like we are able to do the same thing we did before, where grab these and just merge them to center. That'll give you sort of quads. Now, whatever the heck is happening here is genuinely terrifying. So I'm gonna just, again, sort of start randomly merging stuff and see at what point it breaks down and begins to look like a crazy person did this. And I have a feeling that's going to be sooner than I would like, but here we are. So a lot of this for me, for, certain shapes like are really easy to do this with, but a lot of this for me personally is just sort of going through and being like, what happens if I do this? Ha 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 ha. And just sort of going from there, like seeing what gets me the best result, and then just like messing with like this. I have no plan. I have no, if you do it like this, it will automatically fix these weird issues that I've added. I wish there was a thing for that. That would be great, but alas, I do not know of automatic ways to like fix stuff. So these look kind of close together. Like what happens if I merge these? Because this is an n-gon. So if we merge that, that's pretty alright. Not the worst I've ever seen. Now adding edge loops around this if you need to is going to be annoying, but alright, that makes gross pulling. I'm going to undo that. That makes gross pulling. So I do need to figure out a way to fix the n-gon, and it actually looks... I do have a try right here, so theoretically what I could do is add this in here, and then go back in and loop. That, I imagine, is going to make... As I say, a lot of times it'll make weird pulling there, but in this case it does seem to have worked pretty gosh darn. So that's more or less how I would sort of deal with this. And then this up here is just going to annoy me forever if I don't fix it, honestly, so I'm going to... So let's start by doing that, seeing if that gets me nice, which it kind of really doesn't. So I'm going to go and try that weird multi-cut thing where, again, I just sort of like add a loop in there and then redraw. Okay. And see what happens if I try it. And then just go through again and make sure you have extra edges that you no longer need. All right, so we've done that, and now we have a bunch of just arbitrary delete that. So we had two guys and murder one of them casually. Okay, so delete that. This is now an n-gon, so we can merge the center. Now we have a try and some quads, which is better-ish than it was before. Oh wait, actually, I was trying to delete this. That was the whole point of me doing this, was deleting that loop. I'll do exactly why I'm doing them. But yeah, so that'll give you a pretty decent result. And again, this is like, yeah, there's tries in this, but they're not really doing a whole lot to affect the model. So in this case, I was actually able to get rid of it. It does make a little bit of weird pulling. Again, that's because this is cutting so freakishly aggressively across this. But it really just depends on what you need. I find a lot of times here for some of these corners to, instead of trying to terminate all the loops, to draw some parts of the sphere so that it still holds its like spherical shape without the aggressive. The starting with a bevel is mostly just like a slightly easier way to harden some of the loops. Personally, I still kind of like adding whole loops manually because it's just easier for me to figure out exactly what I'm doing. I know if I do that, it's not going to start with a buttload of gods on my stuff. Oh, look, a cat. But yeah, and then once you're done with this, oh look, I've deleted too many faces. Like crazy. Anyway, well, had I not deleted all of these faces, I was going to say once you're done, you can just grab this, extrude it, and then just pull that back in with a merged center, and then you have a completed top of your sphere. In this case, since I've deleted faces here, we should hash them. Probably the easiest way to do this, just grab these three faces, use vertex snapping to just snap them down with just grab these down and just extrude them down. I'm going to extrude again, and then you can use vertex snapping to just sort of like push them in line with the other, where do I go with this? The other loops, and then it's going to get a little bit janky here because these sort of like pull out slightly. Erase and then what you can do is go through and just sort of start merging stuff together. I find, like, is this going to be a perfect sphere anymore? No. Is this going to be a problem for like 99% of the applications you're doing this for? Probably also no. I mean, even if I was 3D printing this, like those tolerances that I have messed up by doing this is going to be like pretty gosh darn negligible, in my opinion. I guess I'll go through that. Alright, so now you have a nice closed off sphere thingy again. That is basically my bit on the